Thank you, Paul. Yes, I will explain what we are doing in IE Annex 5, which is the air infiltration. So what you see here is the new website that will be launched in the coming weeks, and I will use this website, some print screens, to present you the activities. AIVC is a somewhat special annex in the whole set of annexes which is running in EBC, as it is, let's say, a very long-standing annex. It was created in 1979, so more than 40 years ago, and in essence it's an information center on everything dealing with ventilation and air tightness. So at the moment we work with a 5 years operating period covering the period 2017 to 2021. As all other annexes, we have countries as members. So you see here the 17 member countries of the AIVC, and there is some interest from some other countries to join. And so the management of the AIVC is done through the AIVC board, which in practice means that each country has 1 or 2, in most cases 2, representatives in our board, and it is the board who, in essence, let's say, decide on the policy, approve documents, approve actions, approve projects. So that's the core of our board, but we have also representatives of organizations, as we are an information center, so for us networking is very important. And as you see here, so we have a number of operating agents from other annexes with a link to ventilation, as well as people from other organizations like Viva, IBIPSA, and the INIVE Quality Global Alliance. Networking is also very important, and therefore we have close interactions with a number of organizations. You see them here, so Tightcent, Europe, and Venticool are platforms which are also run by us, but they are more focusing on market implementation, on air tightness issues and ventilative cooling issues. And then you see a number of other organizations which we have a quite close collaboration. A major part of the activities of the IVC are events. So events where we try to reach out to the building sector and inform, let's say, various kinds of users. And in essence, we have, I think, 3 kinds of events. You see them here: conferences, workshops, and webinars. Conferences, we have that since 1979. So each year we have an annual conference, typically September or October. So you see here the 3 last conferences we had. And you see that there was no conference in this year, and that clearly because of COVID-19. So next year conference, assuming that everything goes well with COVID-19, will take place in Greece. You see 13th to 15th of September, as it was planned for this year, but now 1 year later. Then we have the workshops. Typically in March, April, May, we have a workshop combined with the, let's say, the board meeting, which we have at the same time. And you see here the 3 workshops which we had over the last few years. The 2 you see in Sydney and Wellington in 2018, and 1 in Dublin in 2019. Typically for all these workshops and also the conferences, that all the presentations are available on the AIVC website. With respect to the webinars, that's an activity which we have since, I think, 7 to 8 years. So you see here the 4 latest webinars we had this year. You see 1 on moisture control, 1 on ventilation requirements, trends and thermal comfort, 1 on kitchen ventilation, and then 1 ventilative cooling design and examples. All these presentations you can find on YouTube, and also the PowerPoints themselves you can also find on the AIVC website. We have also a number of other webinars in the pipeline. So you see in about a week from now, a webinar focusing on COVID-19 ventilation-related guidance, where 2 major organizations, namely ASHRAE and Viva, will present their key messages with respect to ventilation and COVID-19, and where also a comparison will be made what is similar and what are the differences between both sets of guidelines. Also this month, you see a webinar on better quantifying and locating building leakages. In December, 1 on implementation of ventilative cooling in practice. And then in January, the date is not yet fixed, 1 on improvements in building air tightness of the building stock with an analysis of European databases. As this webinar, all these webinars can freely be participated. Then we come to the section resources, which is quite broad. So you see we have airbase, we have a whole set of publications, we have the conference proceedings, collection of publications, multimedia, news typically through the website or through our mailing. We have newsletters, and we have a section with frequently asked questions. I will highlight a few of them. So airbase is, I would say, a very old database starting in 1979. And at the moment, you see we have in total more than 22,000 publications in the database, of which 16,000 you can download as a PDF. I think in particular for, let's say, more older publications on on ventilation and air times, I think airbase is a really very complete database. In terms of publications, you see three of the, I would say, most important publications. We have what is called ventilation information papers, which are typically 8 to 12 pages, dealing with a certain subject and not, let's say, in a very extensive detail, but I would say focus on the highlight. You see three of them, one on what is smart ventilation, another one, what is the impact of energy policies on building and ductwork air tightness, and another one, metrics of health risks from indoor air. Then we have the technical reports, which are more extensive documents. You see Techno 68 on residential ventilation and health, and Techno 67 was about building air tightness with a critical review of testing, reporting, and quality schemes in 10 countries. And then you see there are also two recent literature lists from publications which went through the IBC, let's say, activities, one on building and ductwork air tightness and another one on ventilative cooling. Multimedia, we have about 100 recordings on YouTube. I just picked out 6 of them to give you a feeling of the scope of topics. You see one here is dealing with moisture buffering in modern timber constructions, another one consideration of indoor air quality metrics from regulatory aspects, another one on CO2 as a metric of ventilation. You see one on cooker hoods, you see one on ventilative cooling design, and finally one focusing on the durability of building air tightness. But in total, we have more than 100 of these recordings available. Newsletters. At the IBC, we produce 2 newsletters a year. But as I said before, we have a very close interaction with Tides Europe and Venticool, and they also produce 2 newsletters a year. So we have a publishing scheme in such a way that roughly each 2 months, one of these newsletters come out, and most of our, let's say, persons in our network receive them typically on average a newsletter each 2 months. If you are not registered, I would say go to the EIBC website where you can easily register on these for these newsletters. Then a few words about our focus fields and projects. In essence, we have 4 major areas of work with which EIBC is dealing. That is smart ventilation, clearly a very important topic, and I would say gaining in importance in terms of optimizing indoor air quality or indoor climate, optimizing energy consumption, and more optimizing also in the term of the smart grid. Then resilient ventilative cooling is a major topic of interest, building and ductwork air tightness as well, and then finally indoor environmental quality. How do we work in the context of AIBC? We have what we call AIBC projects, and that are projects approved by the AIBC board. And so a project can consist of a series of outcomes, can be, for example, include webinars, ventilation information papers, topical sessions, tech notes, webinars, so a whole range of activities. On the next slide, just a few of them to give you an indication. You see one project was on smart ventilation. This was, in this case, a 1-year project. Another one was, and is still running, on the rationale behind ventilation requirements and regulations. This started in 2016. Another one on indoor air quality EAQ metrics. And the last example, because we have more, integrating uncertainties due to wind and stack effect and declared air tightness results. And so typically for all of these projects, there are a number of outcomes, deliverables, and it is the role of the IBC board so as well identify the project, but also follow up the implementation. The most recent project deals with COVID-19 and ventilation. And so there we have at the moment 2, let's say, outcomes ready to, let's say, to be coming out in the next days. On the left-hand side, you see a special AIBC newsletter on COVID-19. and this will be sent out by the end of this week. And as I already mentioned before, we have next week a webinar, you see it at the EBC webinar, where we focus on the ASHRAE and VIVA guidelines. Networking is important, so collaboration is important, and I mentioned already before that we have close interaction with several ventilation-related annexes, of which you see here the representatives in our board. The collaboration of EIVC with these other annexes, you can, I think, summarize as follows. So we try to have a close interaction by having the operating agents as a member of our board. EIVC can play also a role in the identification of possible annexes, program development, following up. And also EIVC has an active role in the dissemination activities, like, for example, facilitating topical sessions at the conference or workshops, having webinars in collaboration, having also publications in collaboration. Then, and that's also part, I would say, of our collaboration efforts. We are one of the founding members of the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance, in which a whole range of international organizations try to combine their forces around the topic of indoor environmental quality and getting it better and better into practice. And also there we monitor at the moment the website of the organization. There you find a lot of information about COVID and indoor air quality and ventilation. So to finalize, first of all, a few words about our website, which is, I would say, a major element in our communication strategy. Just a few figures. So for the last year, we had about 60,000 sessions on our website, which was 50% more than the year before, partly because Airbase is now, let's say, freely accessible. You see that the majority of the visits come through search engines and, in essence, Google, about 17% direct visits and about 5% from backlinks. With respect to the backlinks, you see that there are in total 4,600 active links from other websites to the EIVC, and these links are coming from a total of 481 unique websites. And then finally, what about the future? As I mentioned before, our present activities are part of the implementation period 2017 to 2021, and we started last year the preparation of a follow-up period, and that will be 2022 to 2026. And later on this week, at the executive committee, this proposal will be discussed. There will be some changes, but overall, I would say the kind of activities will be relatively similar. An important change is that we will have for the next period 2 operating periods. So Arnold Jans from Ghent University and myself. And by this, I hope that you have a good overview of what EIVC stands for and what you can obtain as information from the EIVC. Thank you for your attention.